What would you do if you met someone that claimed to be from a country that doesn't exist? Today's story is about a man that lands at the airport with a passport from a country that no one recognizes. But before we get started, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to our channel. The story of the Man of Taured is considered one of the most important and controversial enigmas of the last century. He seems to have appeared out of nowhere, and even today his identity remains unknown. There are probably a lot more cases of people who appear suddenly out of nowhere than we're aware of, people without a past and without a clear and defined identity. This particular story is even more absurd. The Man of Taured comes from a place that does not exist. He's like a ghost that has traveled through time. The story begins in Japan. The man was first spotted in July 1954 at Haneda Airport in Tokyo. A plane from Europe had just landed and the passengers were now heading to customs. It was at this moment that somebody met the mysterious man for the first time. At first glance, nothing particularly odd stands out. He was a middle-aged Caucasian man, well-dressed and with a full beard. He told the airport staff that he was in Japan on a business trip and that this was his third trip that year. There was nothing strange and everything proceeded as normal. That was until the customs agent asked him where he came from. "My name is Janansfer Birodric and I come from Taured," replied the man calmly. According to him, the state of Taured is located between France and Spain, but in reality there's no place in the world with that name. The man spoke mainly French, but he also knew a little bit of Japanese and other languages. In his wallet he had coins from various European countries. The shocking thing was that customs officers discovered that the man's passport, identity card, and driver's license were issued precisely by the state of Taured. The passport stamps confirmed that he had traveled extensively and that this was indeed his third trip to Japan. The customs officers exchanged perplexed glances. They have him transferred to an interrogation room while the experts check that the passport is not a fake. Maybe they were simply forged documents. They asked him for other information about himself, and at first the man from Taured was calm and cooperative. However, time passes and the man starts warning the agents that he was in a rush. He had a business meeting that he couldn't be late to. He was in Tokyo as a representative for the company he works for and is planning a meeting with a Japanese company. But when they called the company, the customs agent made a further discovery. On the other end of the phone, no one knows the man or has ever heard of the company he claims to work for. Even the hotel the man had booked does not recognize him and couldn't find his name in the system. The bank that issued his checkbook, it does not exist and has never existed. Meanwhile, the results of the test carried out on the passport arrived, which confirmed its authenticity. That document was actually issued by the Kingdom of Taured. The man is actually called Janansfer Birodric and all the stamps on his passport are real. But at the same time, none of the airports he had been to before found any trace of the man or the nation of Taured. The man answers questions from the customs agents with humor. He was sure that some of his friends had concocted this very successful joke. The customs agents were confused and no longer knew what to do, so they showed him a map. They showed him what was in between France and Spain and that there's a small principality of Andorra, but there was no trace of Taured. "It is Andorra that does not exist," the mysterious man replied with certainty. "There's the Kingdom of Taured there, the place where I come from." "Of course it's true. Otherwise, how could I have passed all the checks up to now?" he argued, pointing at his stamped passport. Still shocked and speechless, the agents decided to detain the man until they got some clarification on the bizarre situation. As required by the protocol on travelers of unknown origin, they took him to settle into a hotel near the airport. He spent the night under the supervision of the immigration officers who guarded the door of his room, the only way out. Nothing happened that night. The man never left the room and the agents did not hear any particular noises. It was a quiet night. But in the morning, the man from Taured was gone. He disappeared, somehow escaping the locked room he had been in. All of his documents kept under lock and key in the customs offices also disappeared. There is no longer any trace of the mysterious traveler. The man disappeared at the same rate he appeared. The mystery has never been solved. The man from Taured seems to have returned to the non-existent Taured. Some have argued that the man from Taured came from the future. Many, on the other hand, believe that he came from a parallel universe. They argued that the man somehow had passed through a parallel dimension, finding himself at the Haneda airport that day by pure coincidence. According to this theory, there would be a parallel world very similar to ours, but with a small difference. Andorra is known as Taured there. It seems absurd to imagine an object or a person crossing an interdimensional portal and finding himself in a reality that exists in a parallel universe, right? This would certainly explain the many people who describe similar experiences all over the world, wouldn't it? Of course, there were also plenty of skeptics who argued that there is no evidence that the Man of Taured ever existed. There are different versions of this story, and it is possible that from 1954 to today, the banal tale had gradually enriched itself to become the great mystery we now know. However, none of these versions were ever able to explain what actually happened at Tokyo International Airport that day. Who is this man then? Did he tell the truth? Did he come from a parallel universe? Is he from the future? The bitter reality is that we will never know. One thing is certain, the Man from Taured has never been seen again. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like on the video, subscribe to see more true stories.